Good morning. This is Vanessa Castler with Love Fire Counseling. I just wanted to come on today and talk a little bit about forgiveness. It's one of the biggest things that we go over when we're working with couples that are on the brink of divorce or that have just had some problems in their marriage. It always comes back to forgiveness. After you release shame, the Lord can really work on your heart. But forgiveness is a process, and it's not something that comes naturally or easily. It's something that we actually have to learn how to do and let the Lord teach us. And so there's a couple different ways that people like to kind of go through the process of forgiving. I wanted to start with the 4 phases of forgiveness that is discussed in therapista.com. There's going to be a link to the worksheet if you would like to look on this later in your own time. But the first phase of forgiveness, first of all, I kind of want to read this. It says, forgiveness does not mean forgetting or condoning the wrongdoing, granting legal mercy, or reconciling a relationship. You can forgive a person while in no way believing that their actions were acceptable or justified. But on the other hand, just simply saying, I forgive you, or accepting an apology is not forgiveness either. It says, in fact, forgiveness can occur without ever speaking to the wrongdoer. Forgiveness is an emotional change that occurs within the person that has been wronged. Okay, so the first phase that it talks about is the uncovering phase. And so in this phase, it's really important to allow yourself to uncover, what's wrong. Another form that my sister actually came up with was the hugs. And in the uncovering phase, there's also, she wrote it, highlight the hurt. Highlight the hurt for the H in hugs. Okay, so this is where you sit down and you can actually use just a journaling prompt, and you can write out all the reasons why you're upset or mad. We use a game in, I'll probably do a different video on it, but it's called Clean Slate. And this is where, if you're in counseling sessions, you sit with your partner, and across the table from each other, you just get a whiteboard and you're putting X's on the boards of all the things that they've done that really hurt you, that you really have a hard time letting go of or forgiving. And so it might be when you lied to me, or when you manipulated, or all of these different things. And this is the free expression zone when you're just able to let it out and see, like, okay, what is the reason why I'm holding on to resentment or bitterness towards this person? What is keeping me from fully forgiving? So in the therapista.com worksheet, it really talks about the injustices. So why are you hurt? Why? You can write it all out on a piece of paper, and then actually take a highlighter and just highlight all the things that were just injustices or you felt like were not okay. And it sounds like kind of counterintuitive for forgiveness, but it's proven that after it comes out, even just like we detox sometimes, it's easier to release it if you really see it for all it is and all its ugliness. And so that kind of takes us to the next one. The next one in the highlight the hurt hugs one is unleash the ugly. So unleash the ugly. And this is where you just really let yourself go to town and say, this hurt me, and it doesn't have to be to the person, but even expressing it outwardly to the Lord and just saying, God, this was not fair. This is what happened, and this is why I'm having such a hard time, like forgiving my enemy or my best friend that feels like an enemy right now. So in the therapista.com, the next is the decision phase. Okay, so I'm going to go back for a second. In uncovering, we're looking at the painful emotions, so like anger and shame. We're looking at any avoidance that you might have had for a new relationship, any cost that it cost you, like money or time, or a physical injury if it was like an abuse situation, or maybe you think of it over and over. We call that cognitive rehearsal. So all the times where you just meditate on it and it just triggers you, or you pass a location where your ex had an affair or something like that, that just bugs you and you can't get over it. So that's the uncovering phase, to really identify what things still bother you. Okay, and EMDR, if you do individual sessions with us, EMDR is when we can deep dive with the Lord and let Him kind of go through and really process the pain of all of those things. Okay, so the next is the decision phase. And this gives you a deeper understanding of what it is, and you can make the decision at this point whether you're going to choose or reject whether you're going to forgive or not. And so this is a good time to list pros and cons. We do that a lot in here with the congrats board and this board of what's the positive things that will come if I make this decision, and what's the negative things. What things might still happen if I choose to make this decision. So the pros and the cons, and then how might things be different if I choose this choice to forgive or to let go or to move forward. Okay? And so unleashing the ugly, a lot of people like to really go out in nature at this point and just we do art therapy. One of our therapists does color therapy, and this is a great way to release anger through the color red, or just something that you can do to really put it outside of you. I tell clients all the time, if it's a lump in your throat, it means there's something that has to be said or done. We have to do or say something to get it out. It's not going to come out without you processing it. So a physical display with kids, we have them yell or into like a tub or a pillow. I have them scream it out, blah, anything that will really allow you to release that anger that you've been hovering inside. Okay, now the next phase that we're going to go through is the work phase. Okay, how many of you guys like work? I love it. If you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. I've always been told, and so I found this career, and now I'm always in love. Okay, so this is the phase where you have to understand your feelings towards the person who offended you. Sometimes they're positive and sometimes they're super negative, and that can be confusing. It can be a mixture of feelings. It can be a love and hate relationship, so to speak. And so, especially with marriage, and if it's your spouse, there's so many things you love about that person, but the disappointment and discouragement from the things that happen keep you from really trusting them again. Does that make sense? Okay, so one of the things that we do in here for the work phase is I have you guys do a meditation, and you just picture your spouse, and you picture them completely happy and completely without the problem that you have seen them with now. Say it's an addiction. You see them completely free and whole. It could be their future self. And then you also picture them, in another kind of mental rehearsal, we do picture them fully chained and bound and not able to have freedom. And then there's a phase in that where, through applying compassion through the meditation to that person, you see them being washed over and healed, and all the chains falling off, and them receiving your forgiveness, or receiving the newness of the Lord just washing over them like a baptism or a fresh fire, just fully cleansing them from head to toe and setting them free from their chains. Even in that meditation, you can feel it in your body. You're like, oh my goodness, you're so mad at them at first, and then you start to develop this kind of sense of compassion or understanding for them in their situation. So it's work in that it takes some dedication to project light to somebody and to project love. But if you can do it in your mind, our minds and our visualizations they do to our body 80% as if it's actually happening for reals. That's why the power of your thoughts are so important, to be able to either think on those things which are good and holy and lovely and acceptable, and then if you ruminate on the things that are negative, or you have constant negative self-talk or mental rehearsing all the things that person did wrong to you, it's really hard to come out of that, because your body is re-traumatizing itself over and over when you think negatively like that. So we teach positive thoughts, we teach positive affirmation statements to get us into a better mindset. The 4-step is one thing that we use in the program as well, and it takes us from negative cognitions to positive cognitions. And the positive ones always align with who God says you are and who God says that person is. Okay, so the next part is, what might it have been like for that person that offended you or that hurt you in some way? You know, I know that there was a time where I had a problem with my dad and letting go of just anger that I had because he didn't approve of my high school boyfriend, is the thing. But one of the things I had to do was I had to picture him as a 5-year-old child and what it was like with his situation or imagined situation. And it was a whole lot easier for me to have compassion on him when we were in an argument, because I saw him in his childlike self, in his pure form, and now we have this awesome relationship without all that. But it takes time to be able to really see the person as who God sees them. Okay. So at this point, the work phase, you also need to highlight anything that you still feel towards that person and let it out. And it's kind of confession stage, because you're saying, I feel angry and bitter and I feel hatred inside of me. And so you're getting out your own feelings and emotions towards that person. And then the one that my sister Asri did, give it to God. So this is kind of a Christian version, but I love it so much because you can do a ceremony at this point. Give it to God. It's easier to remember too, because the G, the H, the U, the G, highlight the hurt, unleash ugly, give to God. And so giving it to God is this idea of, you can actually do a ceremony. And so say you lost a child and you had a miscarriage, and you are just really angry with God and you're having a problem working through that. So this last part, the work, would be taking something that represented the baby and going on a hike up the top of the mountain and, laying it on the altar and saying, Lord, I can't have what I had thought you had given to me. I can't, it's a loss. It's a grieving process, and it's a letting go. And it's like, several times I've had to grieve the loss of a hope or a dream that I had prior to a separation, or a loss of someone I loved, or a dream that I had that just didn't work out. So if you have anything like that, this is a perfect place to put it in and do kind of a ceremony or a ritual. Gottman talks a lot about healing rituals. If you have the Gottman app, I highly recommend downloading the Gottman card deck app for couples. And then the work phase we kind of went through, and then the last phase is the deepening phase for forgiveness. And so this is probably the part that you have to repeat. It doesn't just happen overnight. The average person takes 2 years to heal from an affair or even a death of a loved one or a spouse. And there's a really good book on that. If you did lose a spouse, or like the death, or have gone through a divorce, the book that I recommend is Dr. John Gray. He wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, but he also wrote this book called Starting Over with Mars and Venus. And Starting Over, he wrote after he lost his wife to death. And so, but he also has a ton of examples of how to co-parent, of how to get through a divorce, or how to work through, even if you choose to restore in the future, like how to rebuild your heart, and after you've had a wounding, to be able to restore your heart fully before you try to move on and get into another relationship, or even go back to the one that was really painful for you. Okay, so the last is the deepening phase. I love the word deep. Deepening, deeper relationship with the Lord. And this is the character formation piece, because you're allowing God to go and do the inner work in you. And when repetitive thoughts come up, and the same with the game Clean Slate, after people have put their exes and all the things that their spouse did wrong, we play a game where they One by one, they apologize and acknowledge what they've done, and then the other person has the choice to accept the apology and to forgive and then wipe the slate. And so you could start with a whiteboard that's just full of marks, and then it goes little by little. They go back and forth. There's a lot of tears and a lot of like hesitation in this process, but one by one we get to where there's nothing left on the board, and it can be really helpful. It's an hour-long thing you can do in your little sitting area at home. If you don't have a sitting area with your spouse, that you do my VIT processing. Gottman has a 10-minute, 10-minute. So each spouse gets 10 minutes and they sit in a designated area in their home that's private to them. We recommend redoing your bedroom and putting 2 sitting chairs in your bedroom, kind of like these. But after you kind of have this space where you can just sit side by side and talk things through, it can really help long term to have open communication and healing. And so forgiveness is one of those things. It's one of the steps that we go over in our 6-week intensive program, but also in just regular marriage counseling and premarital counseling. And so the deepening phase is where you really let it sit in. And the phase that my sister said is silencing Satan. So in the Christian version here, this is the part where you're basically saying, when the lies come up again, like your husband's a cheater, or any negative beliefs or doubts that you have of yourself or your spouse, this is where you declare the word of the Lord over that situation. And you said, I'm taking this thought captive, I'm putting it under the submission of Christ, and he's going to renew my mind and cleanse my thoughts. And so the silencing Satan is pivotal long-term for forgiveness long-term, because you can forgive one time, but then the deepening phase is living the lifestyle of forgiveness and walking it out day by day. It really helps to remember that when we forgive others, it releases ourselves from our own bondage that we have, right? And not only that, those who forgive are forgiven. So it's like a sweet exchange, that if you can give mercy, you can receive mercy and grace in your time of need, when you need it most, because we're all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. We're never perfect. It could be with your children. If you have a new standard in your home of forgiveness and walking that out on a daily basis, never letting the sun go down when you're angry, like not, even if you slammed a door and got really upset, going back, letting the Holy Spirit come and say, hey, we need to work on this. We need to go touch this. And so turning back around, opening your heart back up and say, hey, I was wrong. Would you please forgive me? I'm going to work on this behavior that I have, So long-term forgiveness is what sets us free and keeps us in the place of grace that we need to just live in the light, to walk in light and not darkness. All right, so that's it for today. I hope this is helpful for you. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. This is a great space for you to just talk about your process of forgiveness, what's been helpful for you, what you still need, if you need any prayer or advice. There's several counselors in this private Facebook group that we have that you can put your comments there. Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day.